You have a PAYDEX score. Maybe you have checked it. Maybe you know the number. But here is the question almost nobody can answer. What does a lender actually do with it once they see it? Because knowing your score and knowing what it means to the person deciding whether to approve you are two completely different things. And that gap is where a lot of business owners get stuck. In my last video, I walked you through how to read your Dun Bradstreet and Equifax business reports. A lot of you watched that one. So today I want to go one level deeper on the number that sits at the center of that D&B report because it is the one that gets misunderstood the most. Let me start with what the PAYDEX score actually is. It is a number from 0 to 100, and it comes from Dun Bradstreet. It is built almost entirely on one thing: when you pay relative to when the invoice was due. Not how much you owe, not how many accounts you have, not how long you have been in business, just timing. And that single factor design is what makes it different from every other score you have dealt with. Your personal FICO score is a blend. Payment history, utilization, length of history, credit mix, new inquiries, all of it weighted together. PAYDEX is not a blend, it is a payment timing score. That is both its strength and its limitation, and understanding that changes how you read it. Here is the scale, and this is the part that surprises people. A score of 80 means you pay on time, exactly on time, right on the due date. 80 is the ceiling for on-time payment. You cannot pay on the due date every single month for 3 years and end up at 90. It does not work that way. To score above 80, you have to pay early. Paying about 15 days early puts you in the low 90s. Paying about 20 days early pushes you toward 100. And going the other direction, paying 15 days late drops you to around 50. 30 days late is closer to 40. 90 days late and you are down in the 20s. The scale is steep and it moves faster on the way down than it does on the way up. So now the real question: what does a lender see when they pull that number? First, understand who is even looking. Dun Bradstreet data gets used most heavily by suppliers, vendors, and trade creditors, the companies deciding whether to extend you net 30 or net 60 terms. It also gets used by some banks and some commercial lenders, but rarely on its own. This matters because a lot of people treat PAYDEX like it is the business version of a FICO score that every lender pulls. It is not. It is one input, and for some lenders it is not even the main one. When a trade creditor pulls your D&B file, they are asking one narrow question: if I ship this order and bill you net 30, will you pay me in 30 days? PAYDEX answers exactly that question, which is why it carries real weight with them. An 80 tells them you pay when you say you will. A 90 tells them you pay before you have to, which in their world is a strong signal. It usually means you have cash on hand and you are organized about it. Below a 70 and they start thinking about smaller opening limits, prepayment, or a deposit. Banks and commercial lenders use it differently. For them, PAYDEX is a supporting data point, not the decision. They are looking at revenue, time in business, bank statements, debt service coverage, and very often your personal credit. PAYDEX shows up as corroboration. It's evidence that the business pays its obligations. A strong score will not rescue a weak application. A weak score can absolutely sink an otherwise decent one. Now, let me tell you what a lender is really doing when they look at that number, because it is not what most people picture. They are not looking at 82 and thinking 82, good. They are asking 3 questions and the score is only the first one. Question 1, is there enough here to even mean anything? This is the part almost nobody thinks about. A PAYDEX score requires trade experiences to calculate reports from vendors about how you paid them. If you only have 2 or 3 accounts reporting, your score is technically real, but it is built on almost nothing. And an experienced credit analyst knows that. A 90 built on 3 trade lines does not carry the same weight as an 80 built on 15. In fact, the 80 is stronger. It represents a pattern across many relationships instead of a coincidence across a few. So if your strategy has been to open a handful of accounts, pay them early, and chase a high number, understand what you have actually built. You have a high score with thin support. The number looks good. The file does not. Question 2. What is the trend? A static score tells them where you are. The history tells them where you are going. A business sitting at 75 that was at 60 a year ago reads completely differently from a business sitting at 75 that was at 90 a year ago. The first one is recovering. The second one is deteriorating, and deterioration is exactly what a lender is trying to catch before they hand you money. This is why consistency matters more than perfection. One late payment on one account does not end you. A pattern of slipping does. Question 3, does this match everything else? This is where PAYDEX stops being a standalone number and becomes part of a picture. If your PAYDEX says you pay early, but your bank statements show you running to zero every month, something does not reconcile. If your score is strong, but your file shows a business name that does not match your articles of organization, or an address that fails verification, the score stops mattering because now they are questioning whether the file even describes the business in front of them. I have said this before and it applies here too. A good number attached to a "here is the thing I want you to take from this section." The PAYDEX score is not a grade. It is a piece of evidence. Lenders and vendors are building a case about whether you are safe to extend credit to, and your score is one exhibit in that case, which means chasing the number in isolation is the wrong strategy. Depth of file, consistency over time, and everything around the score lining up, those are what actually move a decision. Let me give you a concrete example of how this plays out. Two businesses apply to the same supplier for a net 60 account with a $10,000 limit. Business A has a PAYDEX of 94 built on 4 trade lines, all opened in the last 8 months. Business B has a PAYDEX of 81 built on 19 trade lines going back 3 years. Most people would assume A wins. In practice, B is far more likely to get the full limit, and A is more likely to get a smaller opening line or a shorter term to start because B has proven something across time and across many relationships. A has proven that 4 vendors got paid early recently. That is not the same thing, and a credit analyst is trained to see the difference. So what do you actually do with all of this? Let me give you 4 things in the order I would do them. First, go find out whether your score is even built on enough data to matter. Pull your Dun Bradstreet file and count the trade experiences, not your score, the number of accounts actually reporting. If you have fewer than about 5, your score is not really telling anyone much yet, and your priority is not raising it. Your priority is adding depth. More reporting accounts paid consistently over more time. Second, move your due dates. This is the single cheapest improvement available to you, and almost nobody does it. Go into your calendar right now and change every vendor due date to 15 days earlier than it actually is. You are not spending $1 more. You are only changing when the money leaves. That is the difference between capping out at 80 and sitting in the low 90s, and it costs you nothing but the calendar edit. Third, verify that the vendors you are paying are actually reporting. This is where people lose entire years. You can pay an account perfectly for 8 months, and if that vendor does not report to Dun Bradstreet, none of it shows up in your PAYDEX. The payment history exists in their system and nowhere else. So before you optimize how you pay, confirm that paying registers at all. Ask the vendor directly which bureaus they report to, and then check your file in 60 to 90 days to confirm it showed up. Fourth, fix everything around the number. Your business name has to match your articles of organization exactly. Your address has to be a real, deliverable, non-residential address. Your phone has to be listed and verifiable. Your entity and industry code have to be right, because a strong PAYDEX attached to a file that fails verification does not get you approved. It gets you a denial letter that says something vague about not meeting current criteria, and you will spend the next 6 months trying to fix a payment history that was never the problem. Let me close with the thing I actually want you to remember. Your PAYDEX score is not the goal. Funding is the goal. The score is one piece of evidence in a case you are building, and a case can be strong or weak, independent of any single exhibit. I have seen files with a 92 get turned down and files with a 78 get approved, and every single time the difference was everything else. The depth of the file, the consistency, and whether the foundation held up under verification. So check your number, sure, but then go look at what is underneath it. If you want the full list of what actually gets checked before anyone looks at how you pay, grab the 8-point business fundability checklist. It walks through the 8 items that determine whether your business qualifies on its own strength, and it is free. The link is in the description. And if you have not watched it yet, the video on reading your Dun and Bradstreet and Equifax reports is the one that goes with this one. That video shows you how to find these numbers. This one tells you what they mean. Watch them together and you will know more about your business credit file than most people who have been building it for years. One last thought before you go. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. The businesses that get funded are almost never the ones with the highest score. They are the ones whose file tells a consistent story from top to bottom. Same name everywhere, same address everywhere, enough accounts reporting that a pattern is visible, payments that land early month after month without drama,